Okay. Good evening and welcome to Scituate Conservation Commission's meeting of January 29th. Couple quick things I need to read. First, this meeting is being held virtually as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the Town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. And Town of Scituate, Mass. Commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Scituate Conservation Commission is committed to providing an environment of respect during our meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there's disagreement. We value the participation of our community, want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcome and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards and to respect our community. With that said, I'd like to welcome you. First off, couple little changes on the agenda, and I'd like to introduce a new member. And then secondly, the end of the meeting, if we have a couple of minutes, I'll update some folks on some work at Bates Lane. But first, I would like to introduce Eric Tomasio. Eric is our brand new member on the commission, and he's replacing Andy Gallagher, who for work commitments couldn't continue to serve on this, but is willing to help us with some of the projects he's already done. And I had a chance to meet Eric for a couple minutes, and he grew up not far from where I grew up on the West End. And welcome you to our commission, Eric.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you. The way this works typically is we have an agenda, and we'll go through the pieces of the agenda. And this is also the first meeting or second meeting. Amy wasn't here at the last meeting, but the first meeting where I wouldn't say we're flying by the seat of our pants. Jen's got us pretty well ironed out here, but typically when we open a hearing, the agent would sort of give a little synopsis, and then we'd go into the applicants, engineers or attorneys, whoever would present their project, and then we would circle around with commission members so that they had an opportunity to ask their questions. Then we open it up to public comment, and at that time, if a commission member wants to add something, they can ask. I'll try to circle back to make sure there's no other comments, and sort of works in a pretty organized way. So I will not call on you first, Eric, to start with on comments, but we'd love to hear your questions and thoughts. So and then we have an agenda mapped out, and if there's any additions or omissions, we like to start the meeting by just asking that we make a change in it. And the only thing I have for this evening, other than introducing you, is some work that we've been doing at Bates Lane. I just wanted to fill anybody in. I don't know if anybody else has anything they want to add to the agenda.
I don't think so.
All good.
Okay. Penny, do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I will make a motion to accept the agenda as written with Frank's add-on.
And do I have a second?
Second from Jen.
Great. Thank you, Jen. All in favor? And I guess I need to go down the list. Is Richard on yet? So Richard? Doug?
Not yet. It doesn't look like it.
Doug?
Yes.
Penny made the motion. Jen seconded. Eric?
Yep.
And Brendan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. First off, we have 040 Crescent. The applicant in this case has requested, Richard had his hand up.
Can you not hear us?
Well, it's in Humrock, so it takes a
I
while.
know. There he is.
There he is. He's waving his hands, but he's got no sound.
Uh. I like that.
You could give us a thumbs up or down, Richard, until we figure out the,
Okay,
okay.
thumbs up.
There's nothing on our end, right? Okay. All right. So 0 and 40 Crescent Ave, the applicant has requested that that project be withdrawn. Am I correct? Yep.
Yeah.
I don't even think we have to vote that, just so you know.
They withdrew it. Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, I think they're coming back with an NOI for that project. So the next one is number 2 Bailey's Island, and this is a continuation. And this was with Morse Engineering. Do we have somebody for that project on?
I think Art Allen was gonna be on too, I hope.
It
believe
looks
so.
like, oh, yeah, Greg's unmuted.
There we go.
I'm here.
Yes, this is Greg with Morse Engineering. Also with me tonight is Sean Papich, our landscape architect, as well as Adam Brodsky, who's the attorney on the project. The homeowners, or sorry, the applicants, Jacqueline McLennan and Mark Moore, are also on the Zoom call. So as a refresher, 2 Bailey's Island. This is a notice of intent for the raise and rebuild of a single family home at that address. We were working with bordering vegetated wetlands, land subject to coastal storm flowage, which is a FEMA zone at elevation 14, and then coastal bank at this site. I don't know if Jen, you're intending on putting a copy of the site plan up. I could do a share screen too, if that's easier.
I think she's working on it. Here, Greg.
There it
How's
is.
that? How's that
There it
one?
is. That's great. Okay, so since the last meeting, you know, we went out to the site with a couple members of the commission. We walked around the entire site, looked at the existing conditions. We had staked out the proposed home location and kind of the proposed limit of work. The commission had also hired both Art Allen to review the wetlands aspects of the site, as well as Deb Keller with Merrill Associates to review the stormwater effects of the site. And since that meeting and since those peer reviews were done, we submitted revised plans earlier in January. We made a couple of what I consider major changes, and then we made a bunch of minor changes. The major changes were really a result of the input that we had at the last meeting and the site visit. We scaled the house back rather significantly. The house that we previously had proposed was approximately 4,590 square feet with a footprint. We've scaled that back to being 3,673 square feet of footprint. We also shifted and rotated the location of the house a little bit. On the bottom side of the screen here, which is the Cohasset Harbor side, there was a pretty nice piece of natural ledge and kind of some natural vegetation that the previous house stuck out into and would have been disturbed with our original proposal. By scaling it back, we're able to keep that ledge and that natural vegetation in place better. And then lastly, the other major change was we revised the layout for the swimming pool. The swimming pool had encroached into the 50-foot buffer zone at this site. As you likely recall, there were already several encroachments into the 50-foot buffer with the existing home. But we were able to move the pool and shift it a little bit, so we got it outside of the 50-foot in its entirety. Additionally, the other minor changes, we did some additional soil testing to proof out the drainage systems that we had designed. We added some notes regarding installation of a construction entrance at the front of the site. We added some notes regarding extra protection around the septic system during construction. This is a site where we're reusing the existing leaching field that's at the site. We added some additional detail regarding the pervious walkways and pervious auto court areas, and submitted letters in response to Art Allen's comments. We revised the BVW delineation as a result of Art and Brad Holmes reviewing the site together and making a couple of flag adjustments. And we looked into whether there was riverfront present at the site or not. It was our determination that riverfront is not present at the site, as the DEP does not list a mouth of coastal river here, and the site was not delineated with riverfront on the abutting property at 1 Bailey's Island. As a result of those changes, we also updated the landscape plan. You know, Sean, I'm sure, could speak about the details of that, but we revised the 50-foot buffer behind the swimming pool with additional plantings now that we were able to get the swimming pool out of the 50. We also added, at Art Allen's recommendation, on the top side of the house here, on the Scituate side of the lot, additional mitigation area, approximately 1,300 square feet, an area that was formerly driveway and gravel surface. That would be additional mitigation. I believe you've received letters from both of those peer review consultants that their comments have been satisfied with this most recent set of revisions. And I'm going to turn it over to you. We're glad to jump into nitty-gritty details if you want, but that's kind of the big picture at this point. I think we have satisfied the peer review and hopefully are able to move forward this evening.
Thank you, Greg. I'd like for Art to go next, if that would work for everybody. Eric, Art Allen is our peer review consultant hired by the town to review the applicant's project.
Hi, good evening. Art Allen from Ecotech. Welcome, Eric. I'm a certified wetland and soil scientist from Ecotech Incorporated based in Worcester. And I've been peer reviewing for the commission for several years now on the wetland side. I visited this site first on November 30th of last year. Provided a comment letter. My first comment memo was dated December 13th. Subsequently reviewed revisions, provided a peer review memo with revisions dated January 23rd. And my final memo today, January 29th, based on the most recent revisions. During my site walk, I walked with Brad Holmes, the project wetland scientist. Jen Smith also met us out at the site, so she has some familiarity with the project and the site. But again, as Greg mentioned, there were some revisions to the wetland delineation that were implemented on the first revised plan, and I'm in agreement with that. Also in agreement that there is no riverfront area nearby. Amy Walkie had brought up that possibly Bailey's Creek could be a perennial stream, but it appears that it's just a tidal stream. It doesn't appear on the DEP topographic or mouth of coastal bank map, so I believe there is no riverfront area present. I commented on the 50-foot setback, which was originally just shown off the bordering vegetated wetland. And as Greg mentioned, there is coastal bank present on this site. And in my opinion, the 50-foot setback should be associated with that with that coastal bank, which is the most kind of landward resource area. So that revision was made to show the 50-foot offset from the coastal bank, which put most of the project site within that 50-foot. But as the commission's aware, this site was previously fairly heavily developed with the somewhat dilapidated single-family house and a number of outbuildings and patios and things. So, so clearly this is a redevelopment type project. Also, land subject to coastal storm flowage is present on the site, but I deferred to the review engineer in terms of those standards, because it's really more of an engineering approach to the land subject to coastal storm flowage under the local bylaw regs. As the commission is aware, there's currently still no standards under the state regulations for land subject to coastal storm flowage, but the town has some standards under their bylaw. At this point, based on the most recent revisions, dated, let's see, January, let's see,
24.
24, January 2025, right? Yeah, January 24 is the engineering plan revisions, and January 25 is the landscape plan revisions. They did increase that mitigation, so they're providing full vegetative mitigation with native species for all of the proposed work in the previously undisturbed or undeveloped 50-foot setback. And I believe at this point, just a quick summary. Yep, I believe at this point, they've addressed all of my comments, and I believe that this is a permittable project in terms of performance standards, both under the bylaw and the Wetlands Protection Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
Thanks, Art.
That's a lot to look at. And in fairness, I think there was a site visit. I believe that Penny and Brendan
Yep.
were able to attend that. So Penny, why don't you go ahead first?
I am absolutely thrilled
Oh,
with the
hold on.
changes.
Penny, hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we did stormwater. Sorry, if Deb's on. let's,
Okay, go ahead, do that.
Good evening, Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. I'll be
Sorry
I'll be
about
quick
that.
here
Art
for you.
was I was so consumed with all of Art's comments.
No problem at all. As Greg and Art mentioned, the revision, we had some comments, more for clarification, some additional soil testing to confirm the stormwater dry well design on the site. We did ask them to provide cross sections for coastal bank to verify the locations shown on the plan, as well as adding the coastal bank delineation, sort of plan right from the pool house that Noel there has a coastal bank resource. No impact to the proposed work there, but knowing that it's on property is good to know that you've got all the resources there. As mentioned, they have added just for sort of documentation purposes, all of their impervious coverages are shown on the plan now so that you can see where the impacts are for the site. They added some details with regards to the pervious driveway, auto court walkways, so that you understand how they'll be constructed. Again, as Greg mentioned, they did reconfigure the house footprint. And I believe that addressed most of my comments were more just informational and adding information to the plan with those additional details for the pavers, et cetera. Clarifying just so that everybody knows that the Vista pruning will be by hand and no heavy equipment will be within the coastal bank area for those locations, if that's acceptable to the commission for those two Vista pruning locations. Again, just highlighting the protection around the existing septic field during construction, just so that we make sure that there's no heavy construction traveling over that area, since half of it will be in the lawn and only about a quarter of it will be protected by the auto court area for vehicle traffic, just making sure we don't crush that and have to do that over. I think that's important for the applicant as much as it is for the town. And I think lastly, it was just the only outstanding item I had on my latest response letter was making sure that the landscaping plan was updated, which was provided today, to address that additional buffer mitigation, which results in a 1-to-1 ratio for impact to mitigation area, which addressed all my comments. So from a stormwater standpoint, I believe they've addressed all of my comments to date. So
Okay.
I can answer any questions you'd like as well.
If you could, if both of you could just hang in there for a bit, we'll work our way through the commission and see where they are. Thanks. Thank you both for a pretty thorough review. Appreciate it. So I know Doug was having a little bit of technical issues, but Penny,
Yes. I am absolutely thrilled. After our site visit, it's a spectacular spot. I like everything they've done. The plantings look great. A lot of plantings and I personally, I'm all set with this. I think they've done everything we've asked them to do.
okay.
So I'm happy, Frank. I think it's wonderful.
That's a good thing.
Yes,
you,
it
Penny.
is.
Brendan, you were out there as well. Do you want to comment, please?
Oh, sure. Excuse me. So it start off, I guess, I'm glad the pool is no longer in the 50 from the original plan. And I see that the house has moved, so I guess that kind of pushed some patio area into the 50 under new retaining wall. I don't know that it was there, but is the additional mitigation for that? And did I hear a 1-to-1 or something for that? Like that's, if I'm reading that right on the north side there.
That's
Greg?
that is correct. The house used to encroach further southerly on the site, on the Cohasset Harbor side, and there's a pretty big, chunk of ledge over there
Right,
that
yeah.
we wanted to try to
Can
avoid.
you unmute
So-
mute Doug?
So
Sorry.
we did
I'm good now, I think.
Sorry.
change the footprint and shift the house a little bit. On the north side of the house, it did push us inside the 50-foot buffer a little bit with the proposed patio. And there's a small retaining wall around that patio. It's about 3 feet high. That's an area that was existing lawn area. It's essentially existing lawn area. It hasn't been well maintained as lawn, but it was basically devoid of vegetation, with the exception, I think there's 2 trees over there. Versus on the other side of the house where we were breaking into that ledge there was pretty substantial vegetation. So that 1,300 square feet of mitigation is to offset that 50-foot buffer disturbance that we are doing. But that 50-foot buffer at that location was an area that essentially was disturbed. There's already a retaining wall in it, and it was lawn surface.
Right. Okay. That
Anything
was
else?
my only comment on this.
Thank you. Doug?
Yep. Can you hear me? Am I back?
We are
Yeah.
hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's a tight site. I think they've done a pretty good job balancing things out. And with those setbacks crashes, kind of closing in on each other and everything, there's not a lot of room. And I think it looks like they've done a pretty good job, and also happy to see all that mitigation. So I think I'm good with it.
Okay. Richard?
Hear me now?
Barely. It's a little faint, but
You can actually hear me? Oh, wow.
I can hear you. It's quiet. It's very,
I'm working
You
on
need
it.
to yell, Richard.
I'm always yelling, but I got to work on this a little bit. But no, I love the changes that have been made, and I'm basically good with it. I don't have any new questions.
okay. Thank you. Jen?
Yeah, I wasn't at the first meeting for this one, but it does seem like there've been a lot of improvements. I'm not clear, is that existing retaining wall near the new retaining wall staying or going?
So,
Yeah, it would be good.
be going.
Okay. And the existing lawn area that's in the 50, are we discontinuing maintenance of that, or is that continuing as lawn?
In that area on the north side, that's to remain as lawn.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think there's a lot of great thought that's clearly gone into this puzzle. I don't love anything in the 50, so I don't, well, I appreciate the mitigation. I don't love a retaining wall in the 50, so I would prefer that to not be there and the lawn to be discontinued in the 50. Outside of that, I really appreciate everything that the peer reviewers have went through, so thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Eric, do you think you've heard enough? Do you feel comfortable?
So there's a lot to catch up on, obviously.
You're jumping
So-
into this one late. Technically, at least you have been familiar with that. We had another hearing on this before, so but I'd like to know your thoughts and feel free to delve in by all means.
Yeah. So looking at the two different plans, the original that I saw and then the updated one that we received recently, I think there's been a lot of improvement. I can't really speak in too much detail to the plan, as far as it goes, in situ. But my only question, and I apologize if this is a very green question of me, but the two proposed vista pruning areas, big thumbs up on no equipment in there. But given the presence of ledge and everything that's ongoing with, the topography of the site with the steep drop, I was just curious to make sure that it was just pruning, no removals of trees, and just because of the nature of the ledge, you're talking probably a shallow, soil profile there. So as long as there's no removals, that was my only question.
Okay. Thank you. Greg or Sean or Adam, anybody want to comment on Jen's thoughts on either lawn area or the retaining area?
Can I tackle the vista pruning one first?
Sure.
There's a note, we are proposing 2 vista pruning areas, and we have 5 notes that go along with those areas. Those areas are not to be cleared of vegetation. We're not removing trees and removing stumps. But what those notes specifically call out is that it's for selective pruning of tree branches only for visibility. In that anytime that vista pruning happens, that they would meet with the conservation agent prior to any cutting being selected at that location. It's to remove portions of the canopy only to create a vista view, not to remove trees or to remove stumps or cause disturbance of any earth of any kind.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. I apologize I missed those notes. There's a lot to take in with all the documentation and everything. So I appreciate the clarification on that.
There is. Thank you, Eric. Nice to meet you too. The regarding the retaining wall, the retaining wall that we have proposed is about half the size of the existing retaining wall that exists inside of the 50-foot buffer zone. And it is further away from the wetland resource than the existing wall that's inside the 50-foot buffer zone. On the north side of the house, where we are proposing the encroachment, you'll note that the existing house goes into the 50-foot buffer zone. We've scaled the house back so that the whole house is now outside of the 50-foot. So while we do go into it with a retaining wall, it's about half the size of what exists today, and the house has been scaled back. The lawn surface, we've proposed the mitigation areas on this side of the site, which are immediately adjacent to the marsh. But in addition, on the south side of the site, over behind the swimming pool, there's substantial mitigation over there as well, where you have 3 existing buildings inside the 50-foot, a septic system inside the 50-foot, a well inside the 50-foot, that are all being discontinued and replaced with natural plantings. So keeping the lawn on the north side, a lawn that, you know, has existed, we're not expanding that lawn surface. I don't see that it's going to be an increase in any detriment to any wetland resource by maintaining that lawn surface as it is today.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody in the audience for this project? See any hands up? We have one, Jen. And whoever did it, would you state your name and address, please?
Hi, my name is Buckner Creel. I live currently at 32 Lincoln Road in Lincoln, Massachusetts. My daughter Kathleen is the owner of the adjacent property. She's on this call too, Katie. I don't know if you want to say anything or not.
Do you have any comments, Mr. Creel?
That's a significant change from what's there, I guess. The question I have is the elevation of the proposed pervious auto court on top of the septic system is a significant elevation differential from the current driveway. So am I correct in looking at this and saying there'll be a serious amount of fill that will connect the level of the existing driveway to the several foot higher auto court?
Greg, do you have an idea on the amount of fill required or what's going to change in topography there?
Sure. I didn't do a cut and fill analysis, so I can't give you a quantity on that. But what I can say is the goal here was essentially to maintain the existing driveway coming up to the site until you get to the corner of this site and the tennis court. The tennis court is the property that Creel owns.
Yeah,
From there, the grade does come up. The driveway is at approximately elevation 10 to 11, and the auto court is at elevation 14. So we're coming up 3 to 4 feet where that auto court is. But we're pulling that driveway or the auto court further away from the lot line in providing mitigation between the lot line and the auto court as well with additional plantings. It does come up in grade. That's the elevation necessary over the leaching field.
Correct. That was one thing I was going to point out, Greg, is that that grade does come up currently right now. That existing grade does come up to over 14, elevation 14 at that corner. Call it the north, let's call it southeast corner, southwest corner of the auto court. So it does come up naturally in that area, and we were really just intending to meet that grade that we needed to be at when we got to that point. It comes, yeah, quite a distance away from where the existing driveway is right now. If you can see that on the plan, kind of tough to tell if that existing driveway is over into kind of where we're going to put the mitigation plantings. So it's coming quite a ways off of that area of property and getting some separation.
Yeah, from that aspect, it certainly does take it away from the existing lot line, but I note that the driveway does come closer to the property line and actually comes right up almost adjacent to the property line, which is access to the lower portion of the Creel lot. So I think we need to be sensitive about that during the construction period. And
Yes.
That would be my request. The area that's shown as mitigation currently is wet most of the time. So it's already a wetland. The edge of the rock wall along the edge of the current driveway is a delineation, and the area on the ocean side of that rock wall is already wet. A lot of this existing rock walls and construction were set specifically to delineate the the property from the marsh around it. And I also note that the quote retaining wall, existing retaining wall, is actually a collection of a rock wall that is you can step up onto. It's not a really a retaining wall in that sense of the term. It just serves as a way to gauge the foundation from the slope that goes down into what's the lawn area. So I'm just commenting on the commission's concern about the retaining wall in where it's located. Again, Kathleen, I don't know if you have any comments that you wish to make.
No, I'm good. Thanks for explaining the changes. Those sound really positive.
Thank you.
Yeah, that really was, it'll be interesting to see how it develops, and I'm hoping that the owners will be sensitive to the fact that it is a beautiful property and with a lot of mature trees that hopefully will be able to be retained. And I note that for your consideration, the existing septic field is Title V compliant at the time that it was constructed, which is about a decade ago. And so it has some cover over it, but I don't know that it would take a lot of construction traffic on top of it. So I urge you to be careful for your sake.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk. The commission is clearly very attentive to the concerns, and we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you very much. Well, it's a beautiful spot and a sensitive area, and we try to do our diligence in reviewing that. So thanks for your input. Do we have anybody else? Not seeing any. Does the applicant want to add anything to on the
Chair-
comments that were just made?
Chair Snow, I'll defer. This is Adam Brodsky. I'll defer to either Greg or Sean, but prior to the close of the public hearing, can you just confirm which commission members are eligible to vote on this filing? I want to be welcoming to Mr. Tommaso, but I think he's missed a hearing as well as Ms. Foley, but
I think though, I think that Eric probably would not be appropriate to vote this one as he's just getting up to speed. But I think that Ms. Foley's had the opportunity to review this, Adam, and discussed it and been part of the piece, and though she might have missed a meeting, if she, I believe I'm accurate in saying that if she's brought herself up to speed on that, I don't have an issue with her voting on that.
thank you. Yeah, if she's reviewed the video and followed the certification, she's met her requirements under Mullen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Moore would like to speak. If he could be unmuted.
Got to unmute him.
I see the mouth moving.
There we go.
Nice.
Good evening.
You can hear me now.
Sure.
Yes.
Can you just for the record, Mr. Moore, just your name and address, please.
Yep, Mark Moore. Actually, my address is now 9 Herds Hill in Gloucester. Used to be down on Maycomber's Way in Marshfield. So on behalf of Jax, she's muted on off, I just want to say to the Creels in particular, and I actually had a conversation with Katie this evening, that our intent is to try to make this as natural as possible. Sean and we have had conversations about how our preference is to have the landscape be wild landscape. I know that there's there's a significant amount of development here, but in our view, the development's positive development, and our concern, we share the concerns that the Creels have, and some of the changes that we've made with the layout have been done to preserve rock and preserve the natural aesthetic of the property. I agree, it's a special property. That's why we're hoping to move here as the last move. So we thank everybody for their consideration, and look forward to doing this the right way.
Thank you. And I'll note that Mr. Moore was also present at our site visit, and seemed very concerned with with this site. Greg, a couple of quick questions. I'm looking at the erosion control and seeing two different sort of delineations of that. What's is there some that's extra fortified, or why is
So it's a mulch sock and a silt fence for the
in
erosion
those
control.
throughout, or just in that area that it's like double hatched?
I believe throughout. I'm just zooming in here.
This is Deb Keller. Sorry, Greg. I had the same thought, but I think that is their proposed tree line
Yeah.
in the areas where they might be trimming a few trees. So they're it kind of looks like a different line type, but it is your erosion control right at the proposed tree line. Does that sound correct, Greg?
That's exactly what it is. The U-shaped kind of line, that's the proposed limit of clearing, versus the dashed bold black line is our mulch sock with the silt fence.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then just with the vista pruning, the only thing that I can say in some ways it's helpful. It was noted that all these trees basically are on ledge, and as they mature, they have a tendency to blow over just because they just don't have enough base to hold them. So when these trees are pruned, we're keeping mature trees, and at the same time, I think extending their time on the site just by not having as much mast on there. So in some ways, it can be beneficial. And I think the only other question, I mean, Jen had pointed out the erosion control and then that tip of lawn that sticks out there, and just give some consideration as to whether that could be maybe mowed less frequently, or somehow maybe some additional plantings or something. You could come to the commission with an amendment if we close this. But any kind of vegetation out there, even if it's very low, or flowers, or it's really not my field, but it would be, I think, a helpful addition to what you've already done.
Understood.
That's all I have. Anything else? I know we have a couple other things tonight. We got to get Art moving. So, I'll take a motion on this.
I make a motion to close.
That's Penny. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
By Doug. All in favor, Richard?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can,
Yes.
loud and clear almost.
There we go. My
Jen?
Yep.
And Brendan
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Great. Thank you very much. So what was the problem, Richard?
I have no friggin' idea. I stopped, started over again, asked Jen to let me in, and here I am. What are
There you go.
you want me to say?
Well, so glad you're with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you, Greg,
Thank you.
Sean, Mr. Moore, all the Art and
Can't
Doug.
wait to
Thank you.
property.
And Adam. 192 Stockbridge Road. I need to open that.
Yeah.
You do.
Oh, let's see. On January 29th, 2024, 6 p.m., the Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Andrew Spath for work related to construction of a duplex dwelling, landscaping, grading, patios, driveways at a single-family dwelling located at 192 Stockbridge Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. Good evening. And this
Good evening,
is
Frank.
Mr. Marabito. Good evening.
Good evening. This is Paul Marabito from Ross Engineering Company, representing the applicant for the project, Andrew Spath. The locus is at 192 Stockbridge Road. It's a 3¼ acre lot. that has 47,282 square feet of upland. That's based upon a field survey. The increase in the impervious area based upon our site design is 18.6%, which is below the 25% threshold for filing for a stormwater permit. The applicant, the site contains an existing dwelling at 192, which is proposed to be raised. And in its place, the plan shows a proposed duplex that'll have a pervious driveway on each side of the home. To the rear of the house, there'd be a pervious patio. The house itself is between 50 and 100 feet. The pervious patio would be just inside the 50-foot buffer. Further behind the proposed work, there's an existing wetland, which was flagged by John Zimmer and reviewed by Art Allen. Since Art's first report in early January, Brad Holmes has addressed the review comments from Art on two separate occasions, the latest of which is the plan that you see on the screen this evening. What the plan calls for is to remove some soil logs, rocks, etc., that are in the upper right-hand corner of the lot. They appear to have been there for a while, but the applicant is going to remove those, and in its place, he is proposing to plant a buffer in the existing lawn area where at the present time there is none. That buffer is about 25 to 30 feet in depth. Brad Holmes has submitted the plan, which is a restoration plan, which we're looking at this evening. He does have a table of the plants and trees. There's a total of 22 that he's proposing to install in that green area. He also has a planting schedule and a list of the work items for doing the work. The locus is in firm zone X on the firm flood zone map. The locus also lies, a portion of it lies in the town of Scituate floodplain and watershed protection district, which is a line that runs through the middle of the lot. None of the proposed work is in that zoning district. The water resource protection district is on the north side of the existing wetland and just over the property line on the right-hand side of the plan. To the left portion of the lot, there are some existing sheds and outbuildings, which you have photographs of. The plan is to leave those in place. The area behind the house, as I mentioned, would be restored, and the remaining area would the applicant proposes to use the existing maintained lawn as it currently exists. The proposed house will be serviced by town water and town sewer, so there's no need for an on-site septic system. I think with that, I'll end and answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, and again, you reviewed this, so can we get your comments?
Sure, Art Allen from Ecotech, a peer review wetland and soil scientific commission. And just so you know, I need to sign off at around 7 to get to another hearing in Randolph, so I'll make it brief. I reviewed the plans and background information and visited the site on January 3rd. Jen Smith met me out there, so again, she's familiar with the site and my findings. The original delineation was essentially at the edge of the existing lawn, which was clearly had been filled. There was fresh gravel around some of the trees, and reviewing back on the air photos, it looked like that area was primarily wooded as recently as about 2010, and then cleared and partially filled. And I found buried hydric soil extending up into that lawn, up to the limit of the new delineation that I put in with flags E1 to E6. based on that depth of recently filled wetland. And Amy had made me aware, Amy Walkie, before she left, made me aware that there was some history of violations and enforcement on this site. So I was prepared for that before I went to the site, but did find again filled, fairly recently filled wetland, and redelineated the site within the lawn area based on that buried hydric soil. And those revised flags have been properly shown on this revised plan. And let's see. So revisions on this plan through January 19th, that would be the plan we're looking at here on the screen. I requested both, as Paul mentioned, both restoration of that the wetland in the filled lawn area, and restoration of at least a portion of that buffer zone, which they've provided 25 feet or so of native vegetation restoration, fill removal within the wetland. The actual hydric topsoil is still under there, so they can basically just expose that buried topsoil and plant in that, and then restore the buffer. Let's see. So, yeah, they're again noted that they're proposing that pervious patio within the 50-foot setback, but that is a lawn area. It looks like that portion of the lawn was pre-existing, so they're not, that wasn't a lawn area that appears to have been recently cleared. So I'll defer to the commission as to how they feel about that pervious patio in the outer 50-foot buffer. I also requested some conservation markers along the new limit of restored buffer, which they're showing on this revised plan. And I'll defer to the commission on, in terms of what kind of signage they would want on those markers. I believe you have a standard for that. And other than that, that's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Noting that Art only has about 5 minutes, I'm first just going to run through members real fast to see if anybody's got a question for Art specifically. Richard?
I don't have a question for Art. I will have some questions.
Okay, Doug?
My only question is, are the flags, you can't necessarily read all of them on the flag on this plan, the E1 through E6. Are those depicted with the darker green area with the plantings, the restoration tag, so that follows that border?
Right,
my assumption.
the green restoration is the proposed wetland restoration within the area that I redelineated, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Penny?
Yeah, so are we only talking where the duplex is going, Art? Because I see sheds and stuff out in the 50-foot on the other side of this plan.
Right, those are pre-existing. They're on the site now, and they go back as far as I could see on the aerial historical aerial photos.
But are we looking at the whole plan here, not just where the duplex is?
The whole property, yes, Penny.
Yes.
Okay, thank
Right.
you. All right.
Jen?
Questions, but not questions for Art.
Okay. Eric?
Nope, all set for Art. Thank you.
Brendan?
Yeah, I have no questions for Art.
So I kind of the same line along the line as Doug. So originally there's wetlands flags at like WF 654, and then it looks like we did some, and I'm it's Doug saying I have a hard time reading, but you've got wetlands lines that are further towards Stockbridge Road. So you moved that in probably 8 feet or more, maybe even
Correct.
further.
Yeah, 8 to 30 feet. Yeah.
Depending on where those were. Does that make
Correct.
sense to you, Doug?
Yeah. So the restoration, the green area is the previous wetlands that had been filled or disturbed and now are being proposed to be restored.
Remove soil, yeah.
And then the gray shaded area is gonna be a additional buffer for this
Additional mitigation, yeah.
mitigation, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it's existing lawn, okay,
Okay,
thank you.
that's helpful, Art. Well, I'm sorry that we couldn't accommodate times differently, but I think we got it. So I appreciate it.
Sure.
Do you want to add anything else before you're off?
I think I'm good. I mean, they've addressed all of my concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Have a good night.
You too. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
See you soon, Art.
Take care.
So, circling back here, I guess we'll start. I think all of you have heard pretty good synopsis of this project. Doug, you want to go ahead with your questions or thoughts?
Yeah, I actually drive by that property a lot, pretty much almost every day. It takes on a lot of water. But I guess I was surprised that there were more wetlands, but that's good that that was identified as that. So my question is, why isn't the duplex moved over closer to where the existing driveways and the existing house is?
Paul?
There's kind of a low spot there that takes on some.
That's the location that was presented to us by the owner at the time. The existing house will be raised prior to occupancy of the duplex. He is keeping those sheds in the back. I'm guessing he wanted the houses as far to the right as he could put it. The proposed duplex is 31 feet in from the street. The minimum setback is 30 feet, so it's as close to the street as it can be. And it also provided room for the driveway on each side for the duplex I'm assuming those are driveways under. The grading shows that.
So I'm guessing then the plan is to live in the existing house until that one's built and then raise it. So that's why they can't move it to that. Because you could get the whole thing out of the 50 if it was slid to the left is my whole point.
Yeah.
Well, part of the reason for the mitigation using the pervious pavement is so you don't have an adverse impact on the wetland. This project, as you can see, there's a plan to restore the wetland that was altered in the past, as well as providing a vegetated buffer on the site, which you currently don't have because it's all lawn. So.
Okay. It's a walkout, it looks like, Paul? Is that a
Yes.
38? No, it's a 36 in front, a 31 out.
Yeah, we laid it out as a walkout. There's a proposed grade of 31 at the back of the house. And up at the streets, you're up around elevation. It's hard to read on the screen. I think it's
33.
38 or 39.
So those driveways, is there garages on both sides? Are they
34.
Yes, yeah,
they garage unders?
I'm not sure. To be honest with you.
Because I only see one grade line is the 32-foot contour.
We show the 31 right in back of the house,
Yeah,
on the patio.
Yeah, there's spot elevations of 31.
And then up at the front of the house, we show 36 at the corners.
Do you know the first floor elevation is?
Well, it's
It's
showing a first floor of 39 too.
39.2, and the basement's 31.4, so that's about 8 feet from the first floor to the basement.
Okay, so yeah, it must be a garage under if they go.
Yeah.
Well, that helps eliminate some grading then. All right, I'll let some other people ask some questions. I guess
I think
the obvious
just
thing
so
to me-
the members caught what Doug was saying about the 50-foot buffer, but let's move on. We'll circle back, Doug, all right?
Yeah, that's good.
Penny?
Yeah, you know what, if they want that pervious patio out back, in the 50-foot, then I say the sheds have to be moved or removed. Cause they are definitely in the 50-foot out back there. I know it's grass now, but you know, if you wanna put a patio behind the duplex, I mean, I want something in return. And I don't understand why that huge shed is out there. I mean, it is interesting. Cause there's a small shed and then there's this big one that looks like the letter L.
Okay.
So that would be my biggest comment. And yeah. Moving on, Frank.
Okay. Jen?
Similar comments to what other people have been saying. The sheds in the 50 need to go, either way. And I have a hard time of allowing anything in the 50, especially when there's space to not be in the 50. And that existing driveway should also be removed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brendan?
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah, so I'm kind of along the same lines. The proposed patio in the 50 is a I guess a sticking point for me, I'll call it. Most of this is in the 100. We're raising a house that's mostly out of the 100 and proposing a duplex that's just about completely in the 100 with a encroachment on the 50. It's just not, for me, there's a lot of issues here. The sheds on the other side, I know they're existing and all that, but I don't know what their long-term purpose would be looking on it would be great if they could go away. But yeah, I'm really hung up on that putting anything in the 50.
Okay.
It's just not what I want to do.
Gotcha. Richard?
Well, first of all, everybody said the right stuff so far that I agree with. I don't like the shed in it. I don't like the patio in the 50. I also would love to know what's going to happen with the ground after the current house is raised. Is there a specific proposal for that piece of the property? I'd certainly like to see the concrete driveway that exists now to not be concrete. There really is a lot of questions here, and Doug's first comment was the one that really got me, is why is it proposed where it is? But that's my list for the moment.
Okay, thank you. Eric?
I agree with all prior comments on the 50-foot. And my question is just before the 50-foot was amended, the limit of work was outside of the 50. Now we have limit of work well within, digging foundations and things like that, obviously going to have impact on that. So that 50-foot seems to be everyone's point of contention here.
Yep. Paul, do you want to comment
Yes,
on any of that? Go ahead.
Yes, I do, Frank. Reading the local wetland bylaw, and keeping in mind that the existing property is a lawn, pretty much up to the wetland line. Your local rules and regulations don't allow for work in the 50-foot buffer zone because the presumption is that the 50-foot buffer zone is vegetated in its current state. And it's the vegetation that's going to protect the resource area. This site is unique in that the lawn goes right up to the wetland line that was flagged. And what we're doing here is to add a substantial area of a buffer zone with plantings where currently that doesn't exist. And in doing so, we're improving the site. The patio behind the house is in is in with the 50-foot buffer zone. However, it's pervious, which means any water that hits that is going to be recharged back into the ground. That you know, which is good for the Water Resource Protection District, you know, which the patio is outside of, but very close to. Um, the 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 performance standard here is to make sure that we don't do anything that's going to harm the resource to degrade or hurt that resource area, even though it's 50 feet away. Um, and again, when we first submitted the plan, the 50-foot buffer was further away from the street, but because of the new flag locations, it's now right at the back of the main portion of the house, which puts the patio just inside the 50-foot buffer. So I don't see where putting that patio in the location is shown on the plan, the fact that it's pervious, and the fact that you have a substantial vegetated buffer zone now. I don't see where that's gonna have a negative impact on the resource area. I'm talking about the pervious patio. We've also, we're able to keep the grading to a minimum. And, when we did the stormwater, calculations, that gravel drive on the left side of the lot that you see off the bit concrete drive, that's gonna go. So some of that driveway is going, even though it's gravel. But the plan is to keep the pavement there and that leads up to the sheds, which are also remaining, so. I think with that, I'll end my comments.
I like Doug, I've gone by this property. I go by it at least once or twice a day. And I do agree that there was an awful lot of different things going on there over the years. The owner prior to Mr. Spath had done quite a bit of work in that lawn area. At one point there was some form of bamboo. It wasn't knotweed, but there was a pretty big area that was vegetated with bamboo.
Yeah.
Maybe some kind of ornamental thing that got away from somebody, but it was huge, where the part of the duplex and the proposed driveway is on the right. That whole corner was just a big clump of but I don't know whether it was an invasive or ornamental. I have no idea, but it was a significant part of that right-hand corner of the property. It is concerning with the patio and then keeping the shed in the
No.
50. We have, just looking for wetlands markers. I saw a note where there's at least
Yes.
how many of those do you have, Paul? Are those the
There's four.
square?
Yeah, the scores, just 4 of them.
Okay.
There's a note in the upper left-hand portion in back of the shed, says proposed conservation marker typical. It's a square, there's one there. Then
Yep.
there's 3 after that going to the right.
I see him. All right. I think we have Mr. Spath's hand up. I think you're on.
Hi,
Andrew.
can you hear me?
We got you.
Oh, good. Hi, this is Andrew Spath. I'm the current owner. I purchased the property maybe a year and a half ago. The filling, the work that's been talked about done in the buffer zone and in the wetlands was done prior to my owning it. I did clean the yard up because it was costing me so much to mow it because it was so rough. I did add some loam and grade. However, that was all done after Mr. Zimmer did the flagging, the initial flagging. So I just wanted that to be clear. The pervious patio that seems to be a bone of contention. I think these are garage unders. This is a similar duplex to what is down the street at 130 Stockbridge Road. I'm just looking to do a similar setup as there. I intend to keep it. I think that it would actually lend itself to be better served as having decks off the back because we do have a bit of an elevation there coming out of the first floor because it is a garage under. I'm happy to not have the pervious patio there if maybe I could just have a few deck footings instead, so that I could do a deck overlooking that area. I'm not sure if that helps or not. The sheds that also seem to, that are in the buffer zone that were existing. I'm a bit torn on removing those because they do give me some impervious square footage, which I would like to keep on the site. Now, I am okay with maybe doing something, maybe in exchange for moving the sheds or getting rid of the sheds, I'm allowed to do some paving at in that 50 to 100 instead to create a bit more of a parking area. I'm not really in love with the sheds. I just am in love with the grandfathered rights of them, if that makes sense. So I'm fine. I'm happy to work together to get those out of there, to get rid of them. Right now I'm just letting one of the neighbors use it to store a vehicle, and I have a mower in there. So they're not the prettiest things going. So with that, I'll throw it back to the commission for their comments.
Thank you. And I would agree with that, the disturbance and a lot of the things that have gone on there, to the best of my recall, was prior to when that property was sold, prior to when it was changed hands. There was just lots of junk vehicles, and it was pretty messy. So it's already in a lot better cleaned up condition, I would have to say, than it was a couple of years ago. So let me circle back. Richard?
Well, one thing that I didn't get an answer on is what's proposed for the grounds once the current house is raised. And I am wondering if the shed as it exists could be relocated or perhaps redesigned and moved to an area that's not as intrusive as it is now.
Okay. Doug?
So for clarification, Andrew, are you saying you're suggesting a deck instead of that patio, pervious
Yes.
patio behind the house?
Yeah.
So that does seem to make more sense.
Well, we need some posts.
Yeah, then you'd have to,
Which isn't a big deal, really. And it have to be pervious.
And posts, sonotubes or whatever you mean.
So then there'd be a grassed area or something underneath the deck.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe what we'll do is we'll run through this, and then maybe between Mr. Marabito and Mr. Spath, they can jump back in with some answers here. Does that make sense? Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. And just one thing, this is outside of our purview, and it's just an ask. As you know, driving up down there, a little bit farther up the road is worse, but it gets these rains, that road gets really wet there. Some of the low spots really flood out. So this proposal has the house grading towards the street, even though I don't see any grade lines on the street, but I'm looking at the benchmark, so it's lower than that. maybe a swale in front or something to get the water out and around. So it doesn't go out on the street. That's, like I said, I think that's outside of our jurisdiction, but it might be helpful in it.
Well,
that-
if it freezes,
area.
yeah.
Yeah, well, it's
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
there's
the problem
there's
down the
problems
street
in those.
is that there's
Is
a
much
whole area that
worse,
floods watersheds from our landfill into an area, and then the elevation of Stockbridge just dams it up, and then when we have these bad rains, it floods over it.
It goes
I
over
don't
it,
know
yeah,
why
and
the
then gets-
DPW hasn't dealt with that, but
Yeah.
sorry, Penny.
That's it.
Yeah, I just, Andrew, could you answer this question? The driveway that's there now, is that going to be removed? What's the purpose of leaving that?
He said no.
Okay, I'm gonna go through all the members, and I'd ask either Paul or
All right, but
or Andrew to.
that's a big concern for me, is
Okay.
why is that staying there?
Okay,
Put a shed there.
Jen.
Yeah, my concerns are still the same. I definitely appreciate what Andrew is saying about his intentions and totally understand that. I would be open to seeing a revised proposal for what he would want for the sheds being removed and it being a deck instead of a pervious patio.
Okay. Eric.
Yeah, I mean, footings are certainly better than excavating for a patio within the 50-foot, but I have nothing else to add other than that.
Okay, Brendan.
I'm with Jen. Yeah, I'd be open to seeing what the proposal is for deck. Yeah, the patio. Yeah, I guess I have other concerns as well regarding the sheds. I get the point that you don't want to give up sheds that were there since maybe the dawn of time. I probably wouldn't either, but so I wouldn't push for that, I guess, but
Move them, that's all.
Yeah.
well,
I think those are pretty tender. I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, put some new
Hey,
ones
move.
in.
by the
some
overhead
pretty.
pictures, I'm wondering who would put a car in there. But
So
anyway.
I think we've run the gauntlet of members here. Either Paul or Andrew, do you want to address some of those comments?
Sure, I will, or I'll start, I guess.
Okay.
Let's see, I guess the only real question I think that needs to be answered is the sheds. And again, it's just so difficult to permit things in the pre-existing. It's difficult to give up that square footage, the use, the rights there. I appreciate your sentiment. I'm definitely willing to work with you. I don't know if you would have a suggestion. Just tearing them down doesn't necessarily. I don't care about them being in the location that they're at. I care more about the square footage of impervious area because of the difficulty in stormwater permitting these days. So if we're willing to, if you'd be willing to let me have a like amount of impervious area in the 50 to 100 as even a parking area, then that would probably mitigate my concerns. And I'm happy to take those down. I'm sure the neighbor with his Corvette in there wouldn't be as happy, but that's how it goes. The existing house would be torn down and that area would be lawn for the use of the residents in the duplex. So that was I think the only other.
That was.
No, the existing driveway, Andrew.
Yes.
Are you gonna leave that?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think Penny, he wants the driveway because he wants the shed. So
Yeah, I
It's
think
like-
he's going to use that for business, I guess. Okay.
No, ma'am. I do not intend to use that for business.
Well, I hate to be blunt, but why the heck would somebody want to move into a beautiful duplex and have what's out back there? Because I've got a picture here of it, and it's like,
Oh,
Penny,
why
I don't
would you
want to,
do that?
I don't want to put words in somebody's mouth, but if I think what he's saying is that right now he has a piece of building that would afford him the ability to build something better at some point in time. And by having an impervious area that's already there, that allows that. And I believe what he just said was if he was allowed to pave or create an area that was, you can tell me if I'm wrong, that was impervious to the same square footage of what he's removing, would that area be out of the 50, Andrew, or at the
yes,
location
yes,
that
sir. Yeah, Frank, again, I'm open to anything. I'm happy to move everything outside of the 50.
Well-
Again, I'm not in love with the sheds. I'm in love with what they would afford me in the future, whether it be a detached garage. I'm not sure. And again, I plan to keep this duplex as a property that I would own
Sure.
to rent.
Well, as you know, as you move forward, there's lots of options that you could do. I mean, would you consider just coming up with a structure or something that we could permit as part of this project? You know, this could be extended for a while, so you'd have several years or more before anything would have to be constructed.
Yeah, maybe if you would allow me to show a detail, I'd have to check the zoning. If I was allowed to put a detached garage outside the 50 with a similar amount of impervious area fed by a driveway, it would be fine.
I think for this commission, getting these things out of the 50 would be
Big
huge.
plus. Yeah.
And we would certainly I think I can speak for the members, would look pretty favorably on that, and the driveway makes sense, and then the house is gone from there. I think what maybe several of you are not seeing is the amount of cleanup that's already happened there.
No, it
If
has.
he hadn't
Yeah.
done that lawn area or picked up the other stuff and was just here with the property when it was first purchased, it's a lot better. And I'm glad that Art and Brad came to an agreement on where that wetlands line is, because there was lots of stuff going on in the back prior to Mr. Spass owning as well. So I think that they came up with a reasonable redelineation.
Frank,
Yes.
may I make a suggestion that I think this has to be continued, but obviously Mr. Spath is willing to work with us a little bit, so maybe we could ask him to make a proposal, supposing the shed was eliminated, where he would put it, come up with something that would get it out of the 50, and also incorporate putting some posts in for a deck, and come back, and we may be able to move forward a little more quickly.
That's certainly fair.
Just a thought.
Andrew, what do you
Yeah,
sure.
that's certainly fair. I'd like to have it all memorialized on a plan that was approved so that again, I wouldn't have to do that portion of work now as far as constructing the
Wouldn't have to.
shed or whatever. I'm happy to remove it now. I just don't have the funds to do anything more than that. So yeah, that would be fine. Maybe we could continue it to whenever your next hearing is, or whatever works for Mr. Maravito. But I'm open to that.
Thank you.
Hold on one second here while I confer with so that the meeting that we could continue this to, Jen's just saying, with the amount of hearings that we have at the next meeting and not having an agent, would March 4th Paul, could you get that revised and into us so we'd have that opportunity to review it?
Yes,
Does March 4th work,
yes.
Andrew?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so I'll take a motion.
Can
I
I
move-
just throw out
Yeah.
two more things?
Nope.
No,
Yeah, please.
Throw it.
Okay, go ahead, Doug.
One of them is a thought is if you're going to move it out of the 50, can we consider getting it out of the resource protection district as well?
That's moving it pretty far forward.
Oh.
Yeah, that's just a question. It's but that line goes, probably 10 feet in front of the existing shed, so it's not.
Yeah.
And the other question is,
Oh.
this plan shows 47,000 square feet of upland. That's not just this area here that we're looking on the plan, is it? This
No,
this
No.
property
No, it's in the
wraps
back.
back around. Okay.
yeah.
Right.
Doug,
That's-
when you said to keep it, you want to keep it outside the Water Resource Protection District?
That was a thought. Yep.
Yeah, those sheds are outside of it now.
I don't know about
Isn't
that,
isn't
Paul.
Up
isn't
by-
that
No, they're
What's the-
not.
that's
Oh,
is
They're
that a
inside.
zone line?
Yeah.
It's that short dash line.
I got you, Paul. Okay.
Huh?
I sit corrected. I was looking at the zone line, the dash line that you have with the arrows going backwards, and I looked at the leader. I thought it was
Oh.
pointing to that.
okay.
I did too.
Me too. So,
Okay.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
don't feel as stupid as I ought to then.
That's okay.
That was all right. I was
No
so
one's
stupid I didn't notice
perfect
it.
here. Especially
Well,
me.
some of these things, Paul's a little bit of a sleeper. He puts a lot of these things on here just to see if we're
Yeah.
all paying attention. He knows how to run that computer better than he claims he does. Okay.
So
Thanks, Mike.
I'll make a motion that we continue this to March 2nd,
March
No,
4th.
fourth. I
March
think.
4th.
March 4th.
Yep.
Yep.
That's
I'll
a motion
second
by Jen, second by
I'll second
Penny.
it. All right.
It's too late. Penny already got
Okay.
it. All in favor,
Okay.
Richard,
Yes, I am.
Doug,
Yes.
Eric,
Yep.
and Brendan. I'm
Yes.
doing this in this order because I still have my old names with Andy. I just penciled Eric in over Andy. So
Yeah.
all right, we're on to the next one.
Okay, thank
Um,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
for working
Um,
with us.
On January 29th, 2024 at 6 p.m. the Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Nerd Drury for work related to a raise and rebuild on a new septic at a single-family dwelling at location 1 Tilden Ave, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting is available on the agenda posted on the town website. And we have,
Greg
What-
Morse with Morse Engineering.
good evening, Greg, again.
Evening. Thank you. For the record, Gregory Morse, I'm a registered engineer, Morse Engineering, representing the property owner who's on the Zoom call tonight, near Drury. This is a notice of intent for property located at 1 Tilden Ave. The project is the raise and rebuild of a single-family home at that address. I'll note that later on your agenda tonight, you are going to be looking at a request for a certificate of compliance at this address as well. Just to differentiate, that was for a septic system repair that was done at this house about a year ago. When Mr. Drury acquired the property, he had us permit a septic system repair, which was installation of a tight tank because it was unable to install a septic system. That tight tank was installed, and that's the request that's on your agenda later tonight. But this application is for the raise and rebuild of the home and abandonment of that tight tank and construction of a new septic system at the property. The lot itself is relatively small. It's 653 square feet in size. It was previously developed with an existing home. The existing home goes over the property lines on two sides, is non-FEMA compliant. This is in the land subject to coastal storm flowage FEMA zone. It's an AE 15 zone. And for reference, the topography at the site is at approximately elevation 12. The proposal is to raise and reconstruct. We would take down the existing home. We would build the new home on timber-driven piles in compliance with FEMA requirements. The first floor elevation would be at elevation 22. This would allow underneath the home a new construction septic system to be built between the piles, and would also allow the property owner one parking space under the home in between the piles. There's no change in the ground surface elevation proposed with this project. Finished grades are plus or minus 6 inches from what exists today at the site. This project was already approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. DEP had no comments. Included in my submittal were copies of structural plans for the pilings, as well as a FEMA elevation certificate documenting compliance with the one resource area, which is the floodplain, which our project complies with, being proposed at elevation 22 in open timber foundation. I turn it over to you for questions and comments.
Okay, great, thank you. Jen, this is your hood. Go ahead.
We can't hear you, Jen.
Sorry.
Much better.
I know the location and it's clear that anything would be better than what's there. I'm just trying to kind of like wrap my head around it because it is such a very tight spot. So I'm I'm kind of lost in some of that right now, but I think in general it sounds like a good idea, but I feel like I'm missing something, so you might have to come back to me.
Okay. Richard?
Yeah, it's I remember it from a year ago. It was fairly controversial at that time, but this seems so much better than it did a year ago already. So and I don't have any real questions. I don't know what else could be done that would be better, to be honest with you. So no more questions.
Okay. Penny?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking, Richard, about that controversy last year with the septic, but the septic's in place, right, Greg? So we're just going to do the house.
No,
No, all right, tell me.
tight tanks in place.
Oh,
Now he's
that's right,
gonna
it was
put
a
in a
tight
whole
tank.
septic system, right?
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do now?
So last year we permitted a tight tank to connect to the existing home, and you know the major issues really were that the existing home is non-FEMA compliant,
right?
And when you do any work to it that increases its value by more than 50%, which touching this house will do that. It's a very low value house. You need to bring it into FEMA compliance, which means the new foundation and the piles. Once we do that, that opens up the area under the house to actually construct a leaching field and a septic system. The site didn't have any open space on it last year when we permitted it. The existing house was over the lot lines on 2 sides. So we permitted a tight tank. So that tight tank will be removed. A new conventional septic tank and leaching field will be installed. One of the other controversial issues last year when we permitted this was the lack of parking at this site. There's no parking space on the site. And, you know, I think the former owner, if they had a vehicle, you know, would park in the street layout on Tilden Ave. This now allows a car to park under the house on the property. So it resolves that issue as well.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Yep. That's all I wanted.
Brendan?
Okay, so that last one, thank you. The last explanation, now I'm a lot closer to understanding. So underneath the house, what's proposed for, are we just gonna gravel that? You're gonna park on it?
Yes. Yeah, it's just gravel.
Okay, and am I looking at, so the whole house is actually getting smaller?
Yes, it is. the house footprint is significantly smaller.
Something we're not generally used to seeing, but
It's probably gonna get taller, but at least the
it's
footprint's
probably
small.
going taller, but
Footprint
you
will
know,
be
hey.
smaller.
All right, I just had that question about, I thank you for all the explanation. Just wanted to know about that. I have no other questions, thanks.
Thank you. Doug?
Yeah, well, you just covered it. I was going to point out that fact that you look at that, the house is actually getting smaller than it was before.
That's
It's
true.
being elevated to become FEMA compliant, and now there's going to be an actual septic system instead of, nobody would be fond of having tight tanks. So it's all around an improvement.
Okay.
Except painting the vent brown, Greg. I want candy stripes, if that's okay, if we put that in there.
Yeah. Okay.
For Christmas time, at least.
Eric,
No further input.
you don't want to comment on the color of the vent or anything?
Not at this time.
Now's your chance, Eric.
Did I ask everybody? I've included her. Jen, did you want to come back to any of this? Or are you clear more on
I'm good. Yeah, no,
you're okay?
I'm glad I went first and last.
Okay. Anybody in the audience for this one?
This is good. Okay.
You want a motion to close?
No, I think we have a hand up.
Oh, then
Yeah.
you know. There he is.
Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Robert O'Mara, and I'm at 143 Glades Road, which is directly in front of the proposed building. It is, the whole project is such tight quarters. And I'm concerned, on a personal level, I'm concerned with my septic system. With all the heavy equipment coming in there, and I'm not even quite sure how they're gonna raise this building, from what side they're gonna be able to get in there to raise the building. And I think there needs to be some sensitivity in terms of being respectful of the septic systems that in some ways I think are almost surround this whole building. I don't know if this is necessarily an issue for this commission, but I just want to sort of register the fact that I think the project's going to be a difficult project to get done without disturbing a lot of what's presently there. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Craig, it is kind of a question. I'm looking at erosion control.
So I don't have any erosion control shown on this plan because we're not doing any substantial excavation. We would be digging out soil for the installation of the septic tank, but we're not relocating it anywhere on site. It would go in a truck and it would leave the site. We're not stockpiling it for reuse anywhere else.
But you're going to excavate underneath here. I'm assuming, I don't know the process, whether it's piles and then the leaching field. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll take the house down and then we will install the septic system. And then we'll do the piles after that.
I would think though, I mean, just the limit of work's so tight, there ought to be something around this property to contain whether it's
we certainly
whether it's a silt fence that's put in or a sock. It just seems like there ought to be it's going to be a tough one. But how do you get to this? Do you get to it off of Tilden Ave?
Off of Tilden Ave, yes. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, we could install an erosion control barrier probably once the house is down. Would be the time to do it, and then that's going to limit all of the new construction work, to inside that limit. The existing home, goes right up to or over the lot lines, so you couldn't really do it prior to demoing the house. But we certainly are sensitive to existing utilities in the area. The abutters septic system, I show it on this plan. because it is in close proximity.
Well, I think he's made a good point, and there ought to be some way to make sure somebody doesn't wander off and drive on that or something. I just noticed is the Board of Health weighed in on this?
Yes, they have. They're awaiting your approval, but they didn't have any comments on the design of it.
Isn't it usually the other way around?
Yes
Board
and
of-
no.
The Board of Health is waiting for our,
Yeah, isn't it usually the other way around? We're waiting on them.
okay. So it was the tight tank already installed, Greg?
Yes.
So there were 2 tight tanks installed
That's
between the existing house and Tilden Ave. That's the request for the certificate of compliance that's on your agenda later tonight. The tight tanks were installed. They were fiberglass or plastic tanks, from what I recall.
Okay.
Those will both be removed when the new leaching field gets built.
I see. All right.
Frank, I believe we have someone who's actually raising their hand. Instead, it's
Bill Graham.
not finding the feature there.
Bill Graham.
Jens, I'm not seeing it, but
I see it. Bill
Bill
Graham.
Graham, yeah.
Hello,
hold on.
There you are, Bill.
Yes,
can you hear me now?
we got you.
Okay, I have a couple of questions.
Just your name and address, please.
Yeah, Bill Graham, 14 Tilden Ave.
Okay.
The construction of this is really, really difficult. On the Tilden Ave side, we have a water main and a gas main coming right down very close to the property line. There's power lines just above it, so any equipment coming in there is going to be in danger of the power lines. I would think the only way this could happen would be to come in on the backside, which we call Minor Terrace. It has no town name. The other thing is the piles that are there. They're going to be about 4 feet away from number 3 Tilden Ave. And when they put the tight tanks in, they found when they dug down, the supports that held up number 1 collapsed in the front section because they were only down 3 or 4 feet. They haven't been replaced, and I understand the house would be removed, so that eliminates that problem. But the driving of the piles next to number 3 is a real concern as to what damage that will do to their foundation and supports, because that house is probably about 1920 construction type also. On the other side, which Mr. O'Mara spoke about, his septic tank is about 10 feet away from the property line, but his leaching pit is very close to the rear portion of the lot. So it's a real concern as far as damage from driving these piles. And I know they vibrate them in rather than drive them, but it still is a major concern. Next point is the vent pipe that is shown on the plan is to be in the front corner of the lot on the west side. And shouldn't that vent pipe be routed through the house, up through into the roof, rather than have the fumes from the septic system come out almost underneath the window of number 3? And my last point is the construction of the leaching field. I don't know what the requirement is, but the plan looks like it has two pipes running down in a bed of gravel. I don't know what the capacity is, but certainly that you have one septic system on one side and a house on the other side. I don't know whether it has the capacity to absorb the septic system that's going to be installed. And for your later comment, your later article about the compliance of the tight tank system, that has not been completed.
The system is not electrically charged. There's no electricity going to the house. And there's been no provision to put it in, as there's no water in the house. So there's no way to test the system to see if it works. So that should not be certified in tonight's meeting.
Okay, thank you. We just, in regard to the function of the septic system, that's not our purview. I'm assuming that the Board of Health will review that design, and that's like their criteria. Obviously, we interact between boards. That's why we're asking about comment. In terms of the driving of the piles of construction method, that's come up before. And it's been the owner is limited to what they can use in this setting. The old foundations aren't allowed. Driven piles, we call them driven, as you point out, most of them are vibrated now.
Yeah.
With less disturbance, if you will, but it certainly is a concern. You know, the applicant has to submit insurance certificates and whatnot with a building permit application. And it's something that you might bring to the attention of the building department as well, to make sure that they are doing whatever they need to monitor that aspect. We get sort of guidelines on what could be constructed here, and that's the foundation that's essentially required
Right.
for that zone.
Frank, if I may interrupt you,
Yep.
you said that normal process is for the Board of Health to approve it first, and then it comes to you. Well, this case, there's been no perk test done on the lot because the house is sitting on the lot. So we really don't know what the depth of the water when they dig it up, what they're going to have to. They may have to put a different septic system in. They may have to put an alternative system in.
Greg?
Sure. So yes, we aren't able to physically go out and do a perk test right now because of the existing house is in the way. The existing house essentially takes up the entire lot. I can tell you I've designed 6 septic systems within 100 feet of this property, though. The soil has been consistent in all 6 of those locations, as has the groundwater table. So we've made some very educated assumptions on what will be found. We've put on the plan that a perk test would be done prior to any construction on this site after the house is demolished. And the Board of Health seems on board with proceeding with that approach.
Okay.
Do you have enough capacity for a leaching field, enough footage or square feet?
Yes, this is a 1-bedroom house with a 1-bedroom septic system.
With 2 bathrooms.
It's not an increase in the number of bedrooms that are currently at the site today.
Right, but you have two bathrooms in the house, where it only has a half bath now.
Well, the way that they calculate the flow is based on a bedroom count. You could have 6 bathrooms, and as far as they're concerned, there's no more flow. It's the way that I can speak to that. The way that the Title V works, it's a bedroom count.
But we're adding a 3rd floor to the house.
Bedroom count.
Still,
Yep.
It's still a bedroom count.
I think that the way that I understand your concern, but I also think right now you've got a couple of tight tanks with almost nothing there. You know, out there's been multiple just old cesspools and pipes.
Yeah.
And so the type of leaching that's put in here kind of assures that gray water from that system is going to get filtered through that material before it enters the groundwater. I mean, they have to show that in their design.
Okay, what are your thoughts on the vent pipe?
It's a good question. I'd rather see the thing go further up. That's nothing that I'd want to have right at the bottom. I've just never, the system, the septic tank itself I mean, they usually, the house one will vent up through, but I've never seen one actually installed on the side of the house, but I don't think it's a bad idea, that's for sure. I don't, Greg, can that be allowed with a Title V? I don't know.
Yeah, so typically the plumbing inside the house goes up and goes through the roof. And
Right.
then, in cases where you have, certain scenarios, sometimes you add a second vent at the end of the leaching field. That's not uncommon. My intent was for it to, go up adjacent to one of the piles, and we could certainly raise the elevation of it. You couldn't raise it up to the roof elevation because it needs the pressure differential from the roof vent to that lower vent to create a vacuum essentially and get air through. But we could raise it up above the window of the house next door. That's not a problem. And it's more of an intake vent as opposed to an exhaust fume vent. It's to draw air in.
Okay. Well, it's a little bit of a, anybody else want to comment based on the information you just heard?
No.
Nope.
Okay. Well, I've gotten everything I need. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a
I'll
motion
make
to
a motion
close.
to close, waiting.
I think Richard started and you walked on
Okay,
him.
Is that
So,
okay, Penny?
go
Richard,
ahead, Richard.
Richard made the motion. We have a
Make a motion to
second.
close.
I'll second that.
That's from Brendan. That was quick. All in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes,
Jen,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Did I get to everybody with questions? I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't
you
even.
did. No, you did.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you
Oh,
very
oh,
much.
Frank, before you let Greg go.
Greg.
Yep.
Greg?
Yeah.
What are you, gentlemen, before I've forgotten which one, I apologize, but mentioned something about the tight tanks. He questioned whether they are ready for the certificate to be approved. I figured I'd ask you if his information was correct or to answer to it.
Sure. So the tight tanks were inspected by the Board of Health. They were tested with a battery for the alarm on them, from what I understand.
There's no water there.
A water line was installed.
It's
to the
not
house.
connected.
Okay, so whether there's running water or not, the tanks are in the ground. All earthwork associated with this project has been done at this point. The Board of Health issues its own separate certificate of compliance for the electrical components and for the habitation of the house. The Conservation Commission is tasked with looking at the impact to the wetland resource areas, making sure that the earthwork was done appropriately, which I feel that it has at this point. The tanks have been installed, they've been backfilled, the site is stabilized.
Is the CFC even needed if this is all being ripped out?
It should be, because the original, I believe, got recorded at the Registry of Deeds and we need to close it out.
I see. Okay.
Oh,
right,
well,
thank-
let me just extend that one
Yeah,
second.
go ahead, Richard.
If we were to provide the certificate, you still need another one from the BOH
Correct.
before it would be recorded?
The Board of Health doesn't require it to be recorded, no.
That's okay.
But they issue a certificate of compliance is what they issue on their end. So they'll issue a certificate of compliance on it, and then the system will be abandoned, immediately after that, basically.
Got it. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're done with that, right? Okay,
Yeah.
administrative items. We had a request from the Waterways Commission to, they would like to construct another kayak stand like the one that was installed at the Driftway Park. They're trying to work with the commission, places where people can store their kayaks or paddle boards or things like that. And I thought that it would be best to reach out to members to see if you had a thought on where, if we want another one, and where would we like to get that, whether we added one to the Driftway Park, whether there was another location in town that we felt it would be more beneficial. So if I could get some input on that, we don't have to necessarily answer it tonight. we can think about it a little bit more, but I think they'd like to know where that, if that could work out. Richard?
That's about the extent of what I can say to it is, I'd
Uh,
like to think, I'd like to think about
any
it.
place in Hammerock for that?
No, yeah, right. I don't think so.
Well, Doug?
You're talking about the driftway? The
So right now there's a aluminum or stainless canoe kayak rack
Yeah.
that was installed at the Driftway Park. And this is for residents that want a place
Yeah.
to store that. And it's under the Waterways Commission, but it's obviously going to be put on a property that's by the town, which typically we have kind of care and custody of. So they're asking, is there a place that we think would be, beneficial to the residents to locate that?
Well,
Um,
I'm fine with another kayak
I just don't
rack.
have a place to suggest.
I just have to look at the site, I guess. They're asking us to cite it.
They're saying, do we have a place that we would like to have that installed? Well, let's see what somebody else, Penny?
I have to hold off on my site for a while, but I will be looking.
You don't want one in your backyard right now?
No, you know where I'm talking. I
Alright.
gotta wait.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like a nice idea. I just really can't think of another spot.
So an
that's not
alternative spot or an addition to?
addition.
Yeah,
Either or.
they want to keep the one that's there. They want to have another one built. And then they want to place it somewhere where we think it would be beneficial or helpful. So right now we have one at the Driftway Park. I'm not quite sure how well it got used.
I used
it. You used it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go.
But at the Driftway, so one question I do have is, you say we have one at the Driftway Park. There's actually 2 racks at the Driftway Park.
Okay.
Each one holding 6, should hold 6 kayaks. Some people doubled up, so
So do we want to just put another one right next to those? I mean,
well, then that would be 3. I don't know. I would look for. I don't know where else you'd want to put one, but
it's got to be close to the water.
But my question is it one, or is it again like 2 of them together? Because it's larger, it fits fine there. You could add a 3rd one at Driftway Park, no problem. There's space. I don't think anything flew away. It was convenient for sure, particularly I have a large kayak. I didn't have any problem having to put it on my car to use it. So that was nice.
Is there any
Eric?
Is there any access point to drop one in behind the Minot Beach parking lot?
Yes.
Because that's the first place that I thought of, because I know that there's that bench there, and then there's, I think, a mini little boat ramp there for that, but there's no stand. So that was just my first thought.
Ms. Foley?
Alternative.
Eric, are you calling out my brother's Eagle Scout project on the town meeting?
What? Nothing of this.
That was, we conditioned that little launch back there. It was Jen's brother with a scout project that built the launch area right there.
Yeah.
Oh, get out.
I mean, that area gets so much use and would probably benefit from something like that. But I feel like the beachgoers would have a bonfire with the kayaks over losing some parking spots.
Yeah, I feel like that too.
But I think you're right, Eric. That's probably the most the best spot for it. But I can't imagine the beachgoers.
I mean, at that location, you would be losing 2 spots potentially, the parallel parking spots along that edge, and there's still the whole overflow lot farther towards Hatherley, right? So
Yeah, I think it could, I agree, it's like definitely the best spot for utility. I don't know, it's because it's such a tight location there. I don't have to drive to the beach, so I'm not sure how people are parking there, but it always seems a little tight. But I think if the waterways wanted to take a look at that spot and see where something might fit.
Well, why don't a few of us, if you have an opportunity, take a ride by, see if we think that there's a spot somewhere, right in that general area. And then,
Good.
yeah, then we'll get back to them. Would that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Frank,
They
I
got
have to drop. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, I'm gonna try to move it along as fast as I can because they got the heat turned up to about 200 degrees in here.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, poor baby.
All right. Thank you, Jen. Have a nice
Yeah.
evening. Okay. Request for modification for 142 Humrock Beach Road. I'm not sure what that is.
Well, Frank, I can tell you a little bit, and
I am.
Jen told me a lot. I believe that was an area where they were supposed to tear down.
The shed.
Yep, the shed, and they did. But then they put a new one back, and I don't think they came back to us.
No, they
And
didn't.
I went by it, and it looks very nice, but they never came back to us, and I think they need to.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because the plans did not show them removing the shed. So they should have come back and asked us for an amendment
Okay.
or,
So Penny,
yeah,
I'm just getting the info from Jen
Okay.
here. So basically that they're looking to do a CFC and you're right, they would need to amend their orders, requesting a shed.
Yeah, I think it's doable. I really do, but I think they need to do it right.
So actually submit, do we get a request
After
for
the
the,
fact.
wait. Okay. Okay. So I think that's what Jen was just saying. They've sent in the photo and information was where the shed is. So I guess the request is to modify that. Do we want them to submit a formal plan with that, Richard? Is that what
Well,
you're?
I don't know what is really best. And I honestly did not, I went by there quickly. I meant to go by and take a tape measure and all that because I'm not sure how big it is, but I think it's bigger than we would normally just allow without, a formal presentation or, and it does look nice, but it just wasn't part of their plans.
but can I
Go
ask
ahead.
a question, Frank?
Sure.
I'm just curious. I did not look at the previous filing for this. Is there a reason that shed was asked to be removed? That's my concern.
I can tell you that it was in very, very poor shape, but it just wasn't, it should have been part of their plans. And I think at the time, and I'm remembering this, not looking it up,
Yeah.
that we even asked about it. And they said, no, we're just going to leave it. I could be
So
wrong.
here's the
my
note that I have.
recollection.
The note that I have is that it's smaller, that the previous shed was 12 feet by 20 feet. And this shed is 10 feet by 14 feet and it's elevated approximately 18 inches above the ground
It is
on 11, 12-inch diameter wood piles.
Okay.
So it seems like it's in.
Can we just accept a modification or do they have to file, Frank?
I guess that's really my question.
I think we could accept it, Penny,
Okay,
personally.
that's the question. So should I make a motion to accept it?
Does anybody else want to comment before you jump to that?
Yeah.
Richard?
No, I think she said it better than I did. I apologize.
No, that's fine. Doug?
No, I mean, it's just I mean, it's not on any kind of foundation or anything like that.
No,
Are
it's-
those
no,
little
it's 18
circles
inches up.
like sauna tubes or something?
I think it says wood piles.
Oh, those are wood piles.
They might have taken some scrap
Mhm.
piles or something.
Well, probably hand dug though, right?
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I might, from looking at it, I would think they were piles that were left over from another house in the area that was raised, or maybe their own, and they cut them.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't have an issue with the shed.
Penny?
No, I have no issue. I just want it done right. That's all.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Brendan?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, I'm good with that. So we gonna
I make a motion to accept the modification of the shed being, a new shed being erected at 142 Hummer Rock Road, Beach
Hummer
Road.
Beach. Yep,
okay, that's a motion. We have a second
I'll second it.
from Richard. All in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
and Brendan.
Yes.
Okay. Orders and conditions.
Okay, we got orders of condition 37 Surfside, 127 Turner, 15 Basson Lane, 20 Newell Street, 25 Palfrey
Palfrey.
Street,
Palfrey, yeah.
Palfrey Street. I make a motion, we accept them all as written.
We have a second
I'll second that.
from Brendan. All in favor, Richard,
Yep.
Doug,
Yes.
Eric. I'm not going to ask you to vote on that one because these are all old ones. Frank, yes. Request for a CFC. Penny, you wanna?
Yeah, I don't really know if they are completed. Does Jen know?
She's not familiar with Atlantic Ave, the paving. Richard, do you know anything about that? If did that seem to be in order?
Only based on what Greg said, I don't have a problem, just the way he described it. But I realized that it's
No.
not being used, so it's hard to tell.
Oh, no, Atlantic Ave, he's talking paving. Richard, not Tilden.
I'm sorry. No, I don't have a problem. No, I have no issue with that at all. It was well done. None. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I'm moving down the line. I'm just,
Yeah, no, that's in
Atlantic Ave was
37.
very well done. No problem at all.
Okay, in 37 Otis, I'm assuming it's elevated. I haven't been out there.
Yeah, I think that one's okay. That was just an
Okay.
elevation.
So we really don't have to make a motion. It's just more,
Right. So you're aware of it.
yes, to make us aware these are
Okay.
being issued. Okay, sounds good to me.
All right.
And
And
now,
then
Frank, you had
just
something.
the last one, real quick, is just that we with all the rain that we had, there was quite a bit of water flowing out of the Bates Lane area down onto Bates Lane. When we constructed the parking area and did the other work, we talked about the possibility of adding some drainage, but then didn't do it because we weren't sure where we were with the budget, but we have sufficient funds, so we've requested and got approval, PO, to construct a drain pipe that will pick up a lot of the runoff. It follows a little bit of a depression and stone wall along the left side of Bates Lane as you're going in Bates Lane, and it all pours out onto the driveway, onto the abutter. So we got Costello to give us a bid and get it approved it to get this drainage done. And at the same time, we're going to try to do a little grading and some stone work on Hollycrest Road and Appleton. Just
That's good.
it's a little late in the season, but hoping with some weather cooperation, we can get those couple of things taken care of.
Better late than never.
Yep.
Sounds good, Frank. I could argue that it's actually early in the season.
Yes, you could, Richard.
There you go. I think that's it. Jen's been really holding up the fort here and we appreciate it.
God love Jen. I give her a round of
Yeah.
applause. She's my hero.
Well, bring her some cookies or something, Penny.
I will, honey. I will.
All right. And
I
Eric,
already
do you have
have
any
something in the works for her, but
Eric, do you have any questions or any thoughts on your first meeting?
No questions, but thank you for everyone for your patience. And yeah, I thought it was a pretty good meeting overall, and I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, just wait for the next one.
some of them get very interesting, Eric.
I saw the you know the agenda that Jen sent out for the next one. So
Yeah,
it was not the agenda, but the list of major items at least. So
Yeah.
and if you have questions or thoughts or something, reach out to any of us.
Any of us.
And be happy to take some time and do that. Work with you on that. So thank you
Yeah,
very much for committing your time as well. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take the big motion.
I take a motion to go home. To adjourn.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Thanks, Brendan.
Richard?
Yep.
Doug?
Yeah.
Eric?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Have a great night.
Night, everyone.
Good night.